Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. Super excited today. Mauricio Umansky, who is the founder and CEO of the agency, started in 2011. You've probably seen him because he's everywhere, TV, podcasts. You see him at a lot of events. He creates this company with a vision with basically to say, hey, can we create an industry disrupting brokerage? We're going to talk about that today. 9 years later, right here we are in 2020, he's got 37 offices, 650 agents. And if you know anything about this guy, he has more $20 million sales than I want to say anybody else on the planet, but we certainly know Los Angeles, and has sold some legendary properties. But I want to get into his backstory, right? Was it always easy? What did he do? What was his climb? What were the struggles he went through, right, to build what it is that he's built? And oh, yes, by the way, the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills plays a role in this as well. So, Mauricio, man, thank you so much. We were chatting before this. It's good to see you. And thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully we'll deliver some fun content and we'll have some fun doing this thing, Tom. It's been a long, long time, right?
Absolutely, man. And, you know, we both watch each other's careers and certainly you have just skyrocketed, you know, the last decade or so. But I want to get into that, right? The question I love to ask people to get started in this is, you know, recognizing this is really sort of an entrepreneurial journey show. Like, what were the things you did to get started? Are you like most people? Were you born with a silver spoon in your mouth and everything was just sort of paved in easiness for you on the early journeys of your life? Give us a little.
My spoon was bronze.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, no, it was not that easy for me. I mean, it wasn't. You know, quite honestly, one of the things that my life and my stroke that I was born with a blood disease. So I actually spent the first 7 years of my life in and out of children's hospitals, and primarily the Boston, which is right now why I'm such a big supporter of the Children's Hospital Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And you know, so going through that and then into high school, you know, my parents, because of that, really did I was the favorite. I was the favorite grandchild. I was the first. I was the favorite child. So I definitely had that going for me without question.
Yeah.
Then when I got into college, I was, you know, I'm kind of a slacker. I used to like the sports. I was really into sports. That's all I cared about. I did not care about going to school. School was relatively easy for me. And so I never did the homework. I never went to the class. I just went in and I took the tests. Okay.
Yeah.
But during that time, my father took a large gamble on business and he lost it all. Bankruptcy, had to restart. He called me up and he said, Mauricio, if you're going to be slacking off at school, I need you to do one of two things. I either need you to go to school or I need you to come to work. And I said to my dad, I said, okay, no problem. Get me through the weekend. I remember he called me like on a Friday and I said, get me through the weekend. I got some partying to do and I'll let you know on Monday what I'm doing. Right. And so I called him up on Monday and I said, all right, I want to go to work. Like that's, you know, I don't like school. It's not for me. It's, you know, it's relatively boring and I want to get to work. So I went to go work for my father, who was in the textile business. And he gave me all the scrappy accounts, all the bad accounts that nobody wanted, that nobody could sell. And within 6 months, I became his number one salesman. And then everybody in the firm was saying, yeah, you're the son of the
founder. Yeah, you're the perfect child.
And blah, blah, blah. And I go, wait a minute, guys, this is all the shit none of you guys wanted.
Yeah.
Right? I got all this shit. So yeah, I became the number one salesman there. The other thing that I really learned how to do there is it's textiles, it's fabric, okay?
Yeah.
So you deal with hundreds of thousands of yards, millions of yards in a year. Your orders are, you know, 200,000 yards, 300,000 yards. So I would come back to my father and I would say, all right, Dad, I got, you know, a 100,000 yard order and I sold it for $2.18, right? And he would do the math and the whole thing. He goes, that's fine, but I need you to go get $2.21. I go, well, 3 cents, what are you talking about? He goes, we multiply those 3 cents by 3 million yards and you tell me what that adds up to. That's our profit. Right. And so I really learned the value of the cent. So, you know, not the value of the dollar, but the value of the cent.
But I tell you, that's a beautiful story the way you described it. I want to go back to a couple things though. Blood disease and then the pressure of being the firstborn, right? And probably even more so, like, you know, a lot of my friends growing up, you know, Hispanics that were like, man, when you're the firstborn, there is a lot of responsibility placed on you. And if, you know, if you're not on the right path, sometimes that can impact you. So tell me about, first of all, the blood disease.
Yeah, I was born with this thing. It's called neutropenia. It's a very rare disease. At the time, I was born in 1970. There were no drugs to prolong it. There's still no cure for it. The cure is back then, 1 in every 50,000 kids was the people that get cured. Today, they have drugs where you can live with it. You don't necessarily get cured. The cure is still by luck, in theory, but you do have drugs that you can live with the disease now.
Yeah.
So basically my parents just, we were born in Mexico. We were at the American hospital, and we used to travel every month to the Children's Hospital in Boston, and we would do a bunch of blood work, and I literally lived in hospitals the first 6 years of my life. I've completely erased that memory, so it's all stories that my grandparents and parents and uncles and everybody has told me, but my brain deleted that world. So I don't remember a birthday party before 7. I don't remember anything before that age, right? And so it's really just all stories I tell now, quite honestly, that that everybody tells me.
Well, sure. And you and I both know, I mean, our life is basically a whole myriad of stories, right? That, create this patchwork of our experiences. I'm curious, from that story, did you become the hero in it? Was there ever a time that it became a weakness for you? Did you ever use it as a strength?
So my parents did a very good job. And what ended up having is that because of that, one of the character traits that I developed that has helped me in my business career today and has helped me throughout life is confidence, right? And they just always made me feel so high, so good. Everything I did was always great. And they really gave me a tremendous amount of confidence. And that's one of those traits that I developed innately, as a young child.
Yeah.
It has always, right. I never had to develop it later in my life. It was installed in me as a kid. And, they didn't make me feel weird about being in hospitals. There was just none of that. And somehow or another, they were amazing at giving me that confidence early. My mother has 4 postdoctorate careers in psychology, which is a whole nother conversation that we can have.
Yeah.
So she was really good at that.
Obviously she knew what she was doing, and the results certainly paid off. But go back to the pressures of being the firstborn. There had to be, whether it was written or not, an expectation that you had to go out and do something extraordinary. And then you talked about being in college and basically just being sports and partying. I don't think that was on the firstborn list.
That was not on the firstborn list. As a Latino, as a Jewish Latino, there's a lot of pressure to be, as the firstborn, to take over the family's businesses, to get married with a girl. I did not. I married an Irish Catholic girl with a kid. Right. So I never really did everything the way that I was supposed to do things, but I did the way, things felt right to me, so I followed my heart. And again, that goes back to what, my mother really instilled in me, which is, to follow your feelings and your heart, that confidence in myself. Sometimes a little bit too confident. I've actually had to pare it down in my later days. So it's been, I've just followed my heart.
I appreciate you sharing that. What about your dad losing, going bankrupt and that moment in time? Like, that's certainly a story that, we either accept the hero's journey, which it sounds like you did, or some people are devastated by it. I know people today that are our age, we're both born in 1970, that struggle with money because early on something tragic happened with money with their parents, and that became the story that they lived into, that there was never enough cookies in the cookie jar, or if you make too much, you're going to lose it all, so you got to be careful. What did you learn from that?
So what you just said, right? I did grow up in as I said, in a bronze spoon, right, with a house in Vail and skiing, and I liked good things, right? I wouldn't call it a silver spoon, but certainly a nice little bronze spoon.
Yeah.
And when we lost all of that and I had lost that lifestyle, one of the most important things for me was, I realized that you can have something and lose it, right? So I never wanted to put myself in a position to lose it again.
Yeah.
And I would, which has been good and bad, because by the same token, I've made some very conservative investments and not taken as many chances as I may have, where I could have made a lot more money. Okay.
Sure.
But by the same token, I've had a very steady growth and a very steady life. And, I've been able to save and save and save and save and given myself a pretty decent financial life. Okay. So it goes both ways.
Yeah.
But the motivational there is also, from a lifestyle perspective, is having something and then it being taken away from you is a very motivational event, right? And you said some people can go the other way and just not know how to deal with it and turn to drugs and turn to alcohol or whatever it is that they turn to. But no, my turn was a complete motivational, which is I wanted to regain it with a lot, have it, save it, and pass it on to my kids, right? So a very different mentality, mindset, occurred because of that. And my mindset was just, I wanted to live that way. I got a taste of it. I got a taste of the silver spoon, and I wanted to live with the silver spoon. It was a much nicer spoon to live with than the wooden spoon. So it made me chase it and made me chase it hard.
So what's always interesting, and this because you deal with this, so many agents as I do, and entrepreneurs and friends and, people that start companies, everybody's got a story about money. And there's usually that moment in time that something happens and they either go right or left. And clearly you took the path of, I'm going to make it back, fear of loss, and I'm going to do even more with it. So I appreciate you sharing that. So you're working with your dad, you're 6 months in, you got all the crappy accounts, you're the number one sales guy. Once again, everybody's going, he's just getting the Glengarry leads, right? Like he's got it easy. He's, daddy's boy. At what point did you say, okay, I've taken this as far as I want to go? Because what I want to get into is, why did you suddenly go into real estate? Like,
that took
got a family business.
I then became an entrepreneur. I went from textiles into clothing design. We started a clothing company called 90265, which don't know if you know, that's the Malibu zip code.
Yep.
We did it in French, Ne faut du cinq. It grew tremendously. We grew it to $30 million of sales. I was selling Nordstroms and Theodores and Fredericks and everybody. I was having the time of my life. What I didn't know, and another great lesson, was how to produce goods. So I started producing them in Mexico. My production came out bad. I was delivering goods that were getting returned. And then my business, which I started with my father, or bought a very small t-shirt company and then turned it into that $30 million business. Then we went bankrupt. And then we lost it. And I lost that really because, again, production. I was young. I was probably 23, 24 years old. And I was trying to run, production lines for 30 million in sales. And it was very, very difficult and a real struggle. And one of my buyers from Macy's, I don't know if anybody knows what Macy's is. It doesn't exist anymore. You and I know what Macy's is.
Of course.
She said to me, she goes, well, why don't you just sell the company? Remember, I was 23 and a half years old. I go, I can sell, somebody wants to buy my company? Like, what are you talking about? She goes, yeah, you have a great line. You just don't know how to produce shit. I go, so you're telling me I can actually sell this thing? She goes, yeah. So I looked around, I sold it. I paid off all my creditors. I paid off all my debt. We ended up with a few, shekels, not too many, but, enough. And then that's when I got into real estate. I've always loved design. I've loved interior design. I liked architecture. It was a business that I could be an entrepreneur again. It was a business that I could, do everything from marketing and be different in marketing. As you know, that's one of the things that the design background is definitely one of the things that I think we've been known for.
Yep.
And that's how we got into that business. But yeah, certainly we learned a lot from the mistakes, because as you know, and you teach it all the time, you can learn as much from your mistakes as you can from the things you do great, right? And sometimes the mistakes is where you learn the most. And so, learning how to run a business that was not fully efficient, that was full of production errors, quite honestly, has helped me tremendously in running the agency today.
No doubt. So you're 23, 24, you sell this business and that's when you chose real estate. So, take us through the journey. I mean, obviously you started your own brokerage that I know, from 2011, right? Literally an agency down the street from my house, in Newport, right? So I see it all the time. Obviously we have tons of clients that are inside your brokerage, but take us back to the early, take us back to the early days though. When you first got started, did you say, I'm going right to the West Side, I'm going right after the high end? And if so, like, what was that first couple of years experience like? What were some of the things you did? Because people will listen to this and maybe want to use that as a model.
Yeah. So again, in selling clothing, back then, one of the big, huge accounts that, was very difficult to open was the JCPenney. And even though it was more prestigious to sell Nordstrom's and Saks, JCPenney was the one you wanted to sell to. Okay. Yep. And it was extremely difficult to get in. And one of my salespeople back then said to me, Mauricio, you can work your way up through buyers and through assistants and you can get there, or you can work your way down through God. We need to get in front of the CEO. And I got in front of the CEO of JCPenney. And I got a meeting.
How did you do that?
I got a meeting. I called and I said, I have an amazing product that is so different that nobody has seen. And I just had balls and confidence. And I flew down to Dallas, to Plano, Texas. And I remember sitting in, the office waiting to meet with the CEO. And he liked me and he gave me a vendor number. And then he said, all right, come back in 2 weeks. And you now have a meeting with all my buyers. And I had a meeting with, 36 buyers. And all of a sudden, boom, I was at JCPenney. But it came from God down, right? From the top down, not from the bottom up, right? So that was the lesson I learned early in life, right? Then my first job, going back to when I was 16 years old, I remember I flunked my algebra class and my parents told me that I wasn't allowed to go to Acapulco that summer. And so I went to go get a job for a gentleman by the name of George Santopietro, who just called me 5 minutes ago while we were on the podcast. And I got a job for him delivering pizzas. I delivered pizzas to him for him. I delivered to him one time. And he was married to Vanna White, who I just saw yesterday as well. And I walked in there and I'm like, oh my God, this world is just so surreal. Like here I am, with the Wheels of Fortune, delivering pizzas to her.
Yes.
And then I got into cut forward to I got into the real estate business. I picked up the phone. I called up George Santopietro, one of my clients, one of my sphere of influence. Mm-hmm. I went to go meet with him. I sat down with him and I said, hey, I'm getting into this business and blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, well, it's just as easy to sell a $20 million house as it is a $2 million house, except for the $20 million house has a lot bigger commissions in it. And I'm like, yeah, from God down, from 20 million down, make it a lot easier. And I went straight into the luxury world. I didn't decide to raise up. I went right for it. I went right to it. And again, the confidence that I developed as a kid, the sales tactics that I developed in selling, pennies, the negotiating pennies over dollars, really was all of the stuff that allowed me to then break into that high-end real estate. And I love to tell that story because, I right after I leave you, I'm going to go to George Santopietro's house. We're showing it, we're selling it. So I tell George, I go, George, I've been working for you since I'm 16 years old. I said, I don't know who else can say they've been employed by somebody for 26 years.
That's awesome. So take us back. I mean, first of all, is your mother alive?
Yeah, both parents.
I hope you call her once a week and say thank you for all the confidence.
I should call her more, but yeah.
Yes. Not just on Mother's Day, but I mean, because, having interacted, with you throughout the year, I mean, you exude a level of confidence that I certainly experience. I see other people experiencing it. And then we see so many people that just don't have it, right? That they're searching for it. You've worked with a lot of people as I have. If you had to just divert kind of off you for a second and say, if somebody wants to develop more confidence, whether it's to go in the high end or start a business or just have a little more swag on their next listing appointment, what do they do? What would be your sort of tips for developing confidence?
Yeah, it's so hard. You got to fake it till you make it. right?
Yeah.
The actors deal with that all the time. They go in there, they're scared shitless, but they got to act, for that 30 seconds that they're doing that scene in order to get that job, they just got to act it out, right? And so when you go in for a listing appointment, when you're delivering, talking to a buyer, you just need to pretend, you need to act, you need to become an actor until you develop it, right? You need to get away. I can tell you, I always talk about fear, right? It's getting over fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of not performing, the fear of getting fired, all of those things, right? You can talk about it as confidence, or you can talk about it as fear, right? They both kind of they both do go hand in hand, right? And so we have to fake it till you make it. But the way you fake it till you make it is you can't fake stats. You can't fake knowledge, right? So in order to fake your character, you got to have the education, right? So if I'm selling Corona Del Mar or I'm selling Newport, well, damn, I better know the tax rolls. I better know every owner of every house. I better know every deal that went down the last 3 years or 5 or 10 years.
Right.
I better know every active listing. I better know every pocket listing. And I better know every agent, right? So now when I get in front of somebody, when I actually have to fake my confidence, I can fake it because I have the knowledge to actually speak about it, right? So you need to fake the character, but you need to have the knowledge, and you need to be able to support the fake.
It's so interesting you say this. But a buddy of mine who I've interviewed now twice on our podcast, he wrote a book called The Alter Ego, and he works with actors and a lot of athletes, a lot of professional athletes that, take Bo Jackson as an example. When Bo Jackson walked onto the field, he was no longer Bo Jackson. He became someone else. Or Sasha
Best
Fierce
athlete in the world, right? Certainly not Michael Jordan, where he was the best winner in the world. But Bo Jackson was probably the best athlete in the world.
No doubt. Or you take Sasha Fierce, right, aka Beyonce. And so there is when you said fake it till you make it, I was a little bit nervous until you went there, because you're right. Like it's you have to become that person, but you can't do that, like you said, without the data. The data is how you get out of the right brain fear emotion and you get into the validation left brain logic. So tell me, just for fun, and diverting again here, but before we started this podcast, you and I were just getting caught up on the market and what's going on. Like at this point in your career, how much time do you spend looking at the data in the market, and what's your process?
Well, every day I look at the data in the market. So, I'm looking at all data. I start right now. I start with, well, particularly now during COVID times, and try to understand where we're going to find the floor, where we're going to start seeing, pipelines, movements, et cetera, et cetera. So I start every day. I look at showing time every day. I'm sure you're familiar with it, right?
Of course. Yes.
Look at that every single day, which to me is the first indicator of, are there going to be more sales, right?
Yep.
Are there buyers looking? Is there nobody looking? So to me, that's the first indicator. Then after that, then I look at, the pipeline, all openings of all escrows across the city, across the counties, across wherever we are located at, right? So that tells us how much is opening, how much is actually selling, how many people are out there looking, how much is actually selling. Then I look at how much is actually closing, what's falling out, what's closing, and are we keeping up with that pipeline? Because if we're keeping up with it, replacing closings with openings, we found our floor, right? So to me, I need to find the floor, right? That's the CEO's hat, that's the agency's hat. Then I start looking at pricing and volume and all that stuff. As a broker, as an agent, I'm looking at the MLS every single day, my hot sheets, the areas I work, what's going in, what's going out, not so much from a statistical perspective, but more just from a knowledge perspective, so that I can talk about that when I'm selling product. This just came on the market, that just sold, this, that, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm educating myself with data on a daily basis.
Bingo. You and I are speaking the same language. When I got started in this, what now feels like a million years ago, the one thing I knew was, I was new, so I was going to kill everybody on data. I was going to have more math, more science, more stats, more social proof than anybody else, and it gave me confidence. And then I look at the best agents on the planet. I'm a co-owner in the Wall Street Journal Top 1000 and America's Best. And whether you talk to the Jills in Miami or you or Timmy Smith or Josh Rubin or just go right on down the line, every single one of them is a data nerd. They know the market inside and out. And you mentioned earlier, a year, 3 years, 5 years, heck, 10 years. That's what makes the great people great. Why? I mean, it's common sense. Why isn't every agent making that common practice?
Yeah, it's the hardest thing that we struggle with. And I think that it just has to do with laziness and not, really taking it serious, because the problem with agents is a lot of agents get into the business because they feel that, they see their friends making money and they feel like it's the easiest way to make money.
Right.
And that's, you and I know that's not true, right? I always tell people that join us at the agency, I say, listen, like, you've been watching us be successful, but I want to be super clear. You did $15 million of sales last year. We don't have fairy dust. I want to get you from 15 to 50.
Yep.
Okay. But it's not going to be because I sprinkle the agency fairy dust on you. It's going to be because you start doing certain, systems that you start following. You change your mindset. You wake up every morning. You do this. I go, you're going to do it yourself. We're going to help you do it. Okay. But you need to do it yourself. Right? Yeah. We're not going to sprinkle fairy dust on you and all of a sudden you're going to go from 15 to 50.
I feel like I need a cut in the action in the agency because he's putting out fairy dust. I mean, hello, like this, is this our new business?
You got it, man.
I got a lot of fairy dust, brother.
That's why I said it, brother.
I love it, man.
I remember I went to go watch your father 3 times. He actually helped me a lot.
For sure.
Back in the day. And, I learned a lot from you guys and from your dad and from you. I saw you a couple of times, but certainly your dad gave me a lot of great systems, and I took them and developed them and changed them a little bit, but
of
certainly
course,
the core of our systems.
I love it. So let's talk about why you went from being an agent to starting a company. What was going on in your mind when you were like, have I gone as far as I can go, or were you pissed off at the man? Like, why'd you do it?
Multiple reasons. Yes. 2008, I went pretty much as, I doubled down. I became the number 7 agent in the country. And I realized I only had 6 more spots to go, which, was exciting, but not that exciting, right?
Right.
That was a little, and I felt that our systems were teachable, repeatable, people could learn from them, and that we can actually create a company where we can not only help people like me, but people like me, right? So it's a company that was built by agents for agents, and there was a frustration because there's not a lot of those, not national brands. There's certainly your local agency or your neighborhood agency, whether they could be huge. Hilton and Highland by Brokers to Brokers, huge company, amazing company, but one company, not a national brand, right? One office. Amazing brand where I first worked, learned a lot, did everything. But my frustration was more, was motivation about feeling like I had gone as far as I could go. But really my frustration was 2 things. One, I felt that there was a lot of room for redefining technology, marketing, growth, and brokerages were just not changing. They were all in this dinosauric, archaic methodologies that they didn't want to change. It worked and nobody wanted to change, and the whole world was changing around us, but brokerages didn't want to change. I mean, we were the last ones to adopt. World Wide Web was around, and there was Napster, and there was all kinds of different things, yet I was still receiving all my listings in a book, and I was flipping through pages. I mean, real estate was such a late adapter of technology, and they controlled all of that stuff. So a lot of frustration in terms of the where real estate was going, and also there was a lot of frustration in the way that agents pitch stuff. Like we pitched a lot of bullshit. Okay, we pitched that we could access the Sotheby's auction
client list, or
pitched that we could access, Berkshire Hathaway, Warren Buffett's friends. We pitched that we could access Hong Kong and China, but we were all full of shit. Okay, none of us could actually do it. And I felt that there was actually a way to actually deliver on your pitch. And so one of the things that the agency did is we wanted to deliver on all of these things that we were pitching because they were there. They were at our fingertips. Just because of technology, nobody was actually delivering on it, right?
Yeah.
Because the brokerages were not willing to take that on. And so I just felt that, you know, it was very frustrating for me to tell my clients that I was going to do something and then not deliver on it. And so I really just wanted to create a company that if I tell my client I'm going to do something, I'm going to deliver on what I'm telling my client I'm going to do, you know, which is why today we do all of our wealth searches, and we have a tremendous amount of science understanding how to connect wealthy people and how to build this wealth environment, so that when you tell me you want to sell $100 million house off market, or a $200 million house off market, I can actually reach the 2,800 people in the world that can actually afford that $200 million house, right? And so that's the frustration, and that's one of the things that we wanted to build.
And by the way, you and I both know, you know, everything is a story. Marketing is a story. Telling a great story gets people's attention. If it's a little provocative, it's even better. And just hearing your story, like I know you said that 1,000 times. Why did you start your business? We had this problem in the industry, and I believe that I could do it better. And right. So let me ask you, in the early days, what were some of the hiccups, the roadblocks, the mistakes? I mean, I couldn't imagine that it was all just super easy.
Well, it was not all super easy, but I can tell you it kind of was super easy, because I would get home and my wife would say, you know, how was your day? And I would say, every single day I had the best day of my life. And 3 years into this thing, I would get home and she would say, how was your day? And I've had the best day of my life. And when you have the best day of your life every single day, it's easy, right? I mean, things are easy when you're having shitty days, but that goes to the mindset. So whether you're resolving a problem or resolving a sale, whether you lost a listing or whether you made a big sale, whether you lost an agent or you gained an agent, if it's the best day of your life, it is ultimately easy. So have we all had struggles? Yeah. I mean, building our technology was probably the hardest thing, you know, I've ever done. That was definitely not easy. You know, we wanted to build a platform that was all internet-based. So the whole brokerage was meant to be internet-based. So what did we do? We went out there and we bought every CRM system, right?
Yes.
We started with one. It didn't deliver what we wanted. We got another one. It didn't deliver what we wanted. We got a third one. It didn't deliver what we wanted. My CTO comes up to me, who was still our CTO, and he says, you know, we can build our own. And I go, really? You can build it? He goes, yeah, I can build it. I go, how much is it going to cost you? He goes, 250 grand all in. I go, really? You can actually do that for that? You have the knowledge and the capacity? He goes, yeah, 100%. I've got it. Well, here we are 8 years later. I'm probably 5 million into the flipping.
Right. Right.
We're still building it. We're still not perfect. It still has a whole bunch of fucking holes in it, but definitely the best one in the business, right?
Yes.
So yeah, I would say that's our biggest frustration in terms of the agency as a whole.
So I want to go, first of all, I totally, because we all, you know, like, I mean, as you're saying it, I can remember starting 16 years ago and all the, hey, we're going to solve this problem. All the other, you know, coaching and training companies are saying, you got to do it this way or that way. Let's do it how the agent wants. Let's personalize it. Let's customize it. Let's be the only company that does this. And then trying to figure out how you're going to deliver on that and then deliver on it at scale. Right? You know what I'm talking, like delivering it on scale with multiple offices and multiple people. But I want to go back to this. You ready? You mentioned earlier, hey, someone's coming to you and you're like, I'm going to get you from 15 to 50 and there's things you got to do and there's marketing you got to do and there's hustle you got to do. So I'm going to flip it. Ready? I'm the coach, but now you're the coach. Okay. I'm doing $15 million a year in sales. I want to do 50 million. What do I have to do? Tell me what to do, coach.
Well, the first thing you should do is pick up the phone and call Tom Ferry.
You're a good man.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's very simple. You know, at the end of the day, you got to make your works. I personally believe in referral business. So you got to start with that, what we all call that sphere of influence, right? Yep. You got to touch that sphere every single day. I also believe we're salespeople, you know, so for me personally, I've never been a Zillow lead buyer. Any agent that, comes to the agency because we have 1,000, or goes anywhere because they've got a whole bunch of traffic and they're expecting to get leads because of the website traffic. That's not an agent I want. Okay.
Yeah, that's not your model.
That is not my model. Like, go build your systems, go touch your people. Why, what have you done? Your high school, your church, your country club. Like, what do you like to do? You like cars? You like to read? Like, what do you like to do? Go build those networks. Go build them in Facebook. Today we have all kinds of different ways of building. It's not only one-on-one, but we can join a whole bunch of different, systems through a bunch of different social networks, right? So not only your personal, but your social networks. So you got to build that. You got to build a drip campaign. You got to touch those people on a constant basis, okay? Then you need the technology to know when those people are actually when it's working, right? So I touched 100 people, 3 of them accessed my website. I want to know that those 3 access my website. Those are now my super hot leads, right? So we've got that technology. They're on my website. I'm now calling them. I'm not letting them know I know they're on my website, but now I've got a hot lead. I've taken them from a slow lead to somebody that's starting to be more active. So boom, one thing. Next thing, knowledge. We already talked about that. I'm not going to repeat that. But if you don't have that core,
none of it works.
Business. Just go get into a different business, right? Like, there's nothing you can do, right? I remember, I'll tell you a story in a second. And then thirdly is I'm a huge believer in being out on the streets. Okay, that for me, the easiest way of being out on the streets is open houses. I built my whole career on open houses. And what I mean by that is not hold an open house and have a check-in list and be watching, NFL in the family room and looking at your phone and wondering how your bets are doing, or not be, absent reading a book because nobody's there, right? When you get an open house and you get one client, well, guess what? That's your best moment. That's your moment to shine because you only got one client, right?
That's right.
So I used to play games in open houses, where I remembered everybody's name. I would say, hello, John, hello, Cindy, hello, blah, blah, blah. They'd walk around, they'd come up the stairs. Hey, John, how'd you like that family room? Is that a great family room for you or what? Hey, Cindy, that kitchen, don't you love cooking in that, that oven? Hey, blah, blah, blah. By the time they leave, I've now developed a little bit of a relationship, but by the time they leave, I call them by their name again. John, Cindy, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden they're like, damn, how do you remember? You have 35 people in here. How do you remember my name? So it's just something to get somebody to connect with you, right? And now you start conversations. Well, what are you looking for? Well, this house is too much money for me. I'm looking for a $3 million house, not a $5 million house. Well, have you seen, ABC Street and 12th Street and 3rd Street and Main Street? And have you seen those? He goes, no, I haven't seen those. Can I show them to you? You got to start building that rapport, right? And so to me, it's all about that. I mean, that's the way you build your business. There's a lot of other ways. Everybody has a special way. I've seen people extremely successful with buying the Zillow leads. I've seen people extremely successful at other things, but that's the relationship way is my way.
I love it. Like for us, the core 4, ready? Your database, your sphere, past clients, ready? Geographic farm, become the expert of some part of town, open houses, and then make sure that your social presence, right? That you're findable everywhere online and you're delivering value to the marketplace, being the educator, which you can't do without the knowledge, right? Knowing the data. So I love it. So I want to hit you with one last question. Actually, I'm going to hit you with 2. The first one is, where do you see yourself in the next 10 to 20 years?
Look, from a business perspective, the agency right now, we have found a model that has been very successful. And because of our technology, we believe we actually have a way to redefine the franchise business. So we're going heavy into franchising. Our franchisees are not franchisees anymore. They are, in essence, company owned because full access, full collaboration, 100% access into our technology. Whatever my Beverly Hills office sees, my Chattanooga, Tennessee office sees. Okay, we have zero separation between that. We have a system and a model that we've developed, which we call business in the cloud, that we believe is better than any other franchise out there. So for the next 10 years, we're going franchise heavy. building an amazing network, an amazing web, sharing all of that stuff so that we can all refer more business, do more work, maintain the client, et cetera, et cetera. Personally, I'd like to get to a point very, very soon where I can start, and COVID has taught me this, but where I can start being the CEO and the manager of the company from home. Okay.
Yep.
And allow this firm to become bigger than me, which is why we never called it the Umansky Estates or the Umansky Rose thing. It was always, it was meant to be generic, which is why it's called the agency. Okay. It was meant for so that, as you say, and you teach everybody, market yourself, market your, so the whole idea of the agency was so generic that you can market yourself powered by the agency. Right.
Right.
So yeah, allow it to become bigger than me. It already is, but really allow it to become bigger than me, and just have a great business for the next 10, 20 years and have a great cash flow and pass it on to my kids and move on with life. Enjoy the kids, enjoy the grandkids, and enjoy life.
Love it. Keep instilling that confidence that your mom instilled in you, right? To the kids and the grandkids.
You need to do that.
Yeah. So kind of just last question. You've delivered a lot of insight here, and I appreciate you just being very open about the early days of your life and, the stories about your dad and, how you were raised and what you did and, mistakes and pluses and confidence and fake it till you make it. There's a lot to unpack here. I guess I would ask you the last thing is, what do you think are the 3 or 4 most important business strategies, business concepts that have allowed you to propel where so many others have failed, or if they didn't fail, they failed to get to your level?
Yeah. We spoke about some of them, confidence and not having fear, knowledge, but there's one concept that to me is very important. And that's, the concept of certainty versus doubt.
Yeah.
Have certainty in decisions you make. Don't doubt yourself. Go for it. Take your time. There's another concept that I live by, which is a very famous Napoleon Bonaparte saying. Napoleon Bonaparte, when he would prepare for battle back in the day, is he would tell his soldiers or his staff, dress me slow because I'm in a hurry, right? Back in the day, it was difficult to get dressed, right? You had a lot of stuff to get ready for battle. So if you made mistakes, it would take you a lot longer than just doing it right the first time, right? You're late for a listing appointment. Yeah. You're late to get home. You're rushing. You're on the freeway. You're speeding. You get pulled over. You're arrested. You're fucked. You're super late. Okay, nothing good. There's nothing good about that one.
Yes.
Right? Dress me slow because I'm in a hurry. You're gonna get to the end line faster. Once you've made that decision, okay. So I take a while to make a decision, but once I make the decision, I have 100% certainty. Yeah. We're green. We don't look back. We don't change our minds. We understand that we might make a mistake. We'll change paths later because we made a mistake. But in the meantime, we are 100% go on that decision. So, and then the third thing that to me is very important for the agency is I've never, ever gotten upset for people making mistakes. I've always told everybody, take chances, take risks. The reason you got hired, because I believe in your mind. Okay. Yes. If I wanted your mind to be my mind, I wouldn't have hired you. I just fucking listen to myself all day long. So when I ask you for advice, I don't want you to tell me what you think I want to hear. I want you to tell me what your mind is telling you. I'll make the decision whether I like it or not. Okay. You might influence me one way or the other, but I want that mind. That's the mind I hired. And then I'll decide whether I like the thing. And by the way, you're never going to get fired at our company for taking risks, for being, for thinking, okay, for expressing your thinking and for making those mistakes. Okay. The only reason you're not surviving at the agency is because you don't take risks, because you're afraid to make mistakes and you don't do shit. Okay?
Yeah. I think for all my friends that are listening, first of all, I love just the energy, brother. And there's a wonderful book Dr. Carol Dweck wrote called The Growth Mindset. And I've talked about it a bunch, and you just personified it, which is you got two kinds of people that are in a fixed mindset, afraid to try, afraid to think, afraid to act out. What if fear of rejection, fear of loss, all that stuff, where the growth mindset says, done is better than perfect. I'm just going to do it. And the worst case scenario is I learned something from it. And we know in life who moves forward and actually who moves the world. So you, my friend, have the growth mindset on steroids. So this has been super fun, man. As we wrap it up, any closing thoughts? If somebody wanted to reach out to you, what's the best way to get you? Should they hit you up on Instagram, email you? What's the best way if somebody says,
really
hey, man?
easy to find, unfortunately. But yeah, Instagram, Umansky18, Umansky18, on email, mumansky@theagencyre.com. And just Google my name. You'll find me.
Awesome, brother. Awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you at another conference or Zoom event or something soon. But love to your family. Definitely call your mother today and thank her again, and your dad. And that's it, partner. So for all my friends watching, we appreciate you always. Share this with a couple friends, especially if you know someone that needs to get their confidence right, or think about how they want to move forward powerfully with a lot more certainty, or give up on the old story, because this guy's done it ×2. So thanks so much for listening. Absolutely give me a like or a comment on whatever platform you're absorbing this content, and definitely reach out to Mauricio. The guy's a beast. All right, everybody, we're out. Thanks so much.